Hey, this year is an incredible milestone within the ministry of FCA. Back in 1954, Don McLennan met with some business owners and some coaches and athletes to found FCA back in 1954, so that makes this year our 60th anniversary. Through the decades, there have been a few coaches that have embodied what FCA was all about. Mention names like Tom Landry and Kay Yao, John Wooden and Tony Dungy, Tom Osborne and Sylvia Hatchell. You'll think of greatness not only on the field, but off as well. And there are many other coaches that could be mentioned in the same breath. There's another legendary name that is often mentioned in the same breath as those champions that I can't think of another coach, another person who embodies what FCA has been about. What I love about this man is that he understood his influence and has sought to honor God with his life and coaching, to do it the right way. His life epitomizes, again, what FCA is all about and what we've sought to do for 60 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so privileged to have a living legend in our midst today. All the way from Tallahassee this morning to be with us on the Outer Banks. Please help me give a warm Outer Banks, Northeast North Carolina welcome to Coach Bobby Bowden.
When does the bus leave back to the United States? It's the first time I've ever been out of America. Oh, I enjoyed flying in here today and seeing this. You know, I've heard of it all my life, but to actually get here and see it and be this close to the water. Now, we're on the water down there, but we're on the Gulf of Mexico, you know. I live in Tallahassee, which is about 25 miles from the coast, but then I also have a house down in Panama City, which is on the Gulf, you know. And so Ann and I, we love the water. Ann and I, our family raised around the water. We love it. But it's beautiful up here, you know. And so it's good to be here. I was raised down in Birmingham, Alabama. That's where I lived for 30 years. Went to high school there, went to college there, went to University of Alabama when I got out of high school. But back in those days, if you got married, you couldn't have a scholarship. And Ann talked me into marrying her, you know. Well, she was 16. It's about time. You know. That's an Alabama thing, you know. But anyway, I got married. No scholarship. So I transferred up to Samford University in Birmingham. That's where I finished school. You know, got my master's degree, and back in I was born in '29. That's when the Big Depression hit, 1929. Do I remember it? No, I said I was born then. Yeah, but my mother used to tell me about my grandfather, who built courthouses in Alabama and in Georgia and Mississippi, and some of them still standing today. And how that we had everybody lost their job during the Depression. And Granddad, his wife had died about 4 years before. He lived by himself, but he was okay financially, you know, building courthouses. Mother tells about how he went to the bank to get his money out, and the bank was bankrupt. He lost every penny he had. Well, back in those days, they move in with you. Well, you know, nowadays we have assisted living and all of that, you know, take care of our older folks. I hesitate to say older. But anyway, so Granddad moved in with us, and at the time, I was about 10. And this is when he moved in with us. And he and I shared the same bedroom. We had 2 beds, and Granddad slept there, and I slept here. Well, then a couple months later, I had an uncle lost his job. He moved in with us. He had 2 boys, about my age. They slept with me, you know, and Granddad slept over there, you know. I never slept alone until I got married. And what's so funny? Oh, boy. Ann and I have been married for 60 happy years, which is not bad out of 64. Ann used to get on me all the time, every year. I heard it every year. Bobby, you love football more than you do me. I heard that every year. Used to get so tired. You love football more than you do me. I said, college or pro? But anyway, Ann and I had 6 children. We had a girl, 4 boys, and then another girl. We got 21 grandchildren. We've got 7 great-grandchildren. But anyway, so we used to go to church in Birmingham, a little old church called Ruhama Baptist Church. And I say little old church. It would be considered a medium-sized church. You know, probably 700-800 members. And Ann and I used to go every Sunday, and Ann and I'd sit on the front row. And she'd sit in one corner of the pew, and I'd sit in the other corner with those 6 kids in between. I could reach half of them. She could reach the other half when they cut up, you know. And so we were sitting there at that church one Sunday morning. It's been years ago. Our kids were probably the ages of 4 to 10 or something like that. And they had a revivalist come in to speak. And he saw me and my family down there. He didn't know us, but he's going to try to use us as an example on faith, because he was talking about faith. And he pointed down at me. He said, "Sir, if I were to stretch a 40-foot I-beam across the floor here, 40 foot long, I'll give you $20 to get on that end and walk to the end. Would you do it?" I said, "Yeah, it would be no problem, you know. It'd be easy. I'd do that for $20. And so he said, "Well, let me ask you another question, because you're going to really test me, you know." He said, "If I took that I-beam up to New York City, and I stretched it from the top of the Twin Towers, that's 110 stories high, and I could put it on that ledge there and cross it over to this ledge, and I said, I'll give you $20 to walk across there. Will you do it?" I said, No, I wouldn't do it for $1 million. I wouldn't do it for every penny in the world. I'd be scared to death to walk across that thing, you know. He said, "Well, let me ask you one more question." He's trying to get a point across, you know. He said, "If I had that thing stretched across there 110 stories high, and you were on that building, and over here, I'm holding one of your children down there by the arms over that edge, and I said, if you'll walk across, I won't drop your child. And if you don't walk across, I will. Would you walk across then?" I said, "Which child?" Well, y'all know where I'm coming from. I can tell that. Well, listen, I've been retired now for 4 years. I hadn't coached. People ask me, "Do you miss coaching?" Not one bit. Not one bit. I was 80 years old when I retired. It was about time to get out, I guess. And but when they say, "Are you retired?" No, I'm not retired. You know, I just don't coach anymore, you know, because now I speak all the time. I'm in several national speaking organizations. They get me plenty of talks. When you retire, you got to make a living, you know. And but so anyway, I do that. But most of my talks are FCA. I mean, man, if somebody invites me to speak to FCA, in fact, I'm speaking tonight somewhere. Then we're going somewhere else. I'm going to speak tomorrow at lunch, and I'm getting 4 times up here. Y'all getting double duty, you know. And but because I believe in it so much. Maybe you're not as familiar as I am, except these coaches probably are. In my last years of coaching at Florida State, here's what I found out. Now, I imagine you'll got a little different situation here. 65% of my players didn't have a daddy. 65% of my players did not have a father in the home. Now, I'm one of those guys that thinks a boy needs a male figure in the home. But they wasn't raised by men. They're raised by women. They're raised by mothers. They're raised by aunts and by uncles and grandmamas. Thank God for them. But don't you feel like I need a male? Somebody to discipline them? Well, I could tell all the difference in the world in the kids that come to school there. Some of them have never been told no, you know. But I always felt like, and it's pretty true, and you coaches the same way, if I can get them for 4 years, I think I can get them straightened out. You know, I think I can get their priorities in the right spot, you know. And but that's why I speak to FCA as much as I can, because FCA is trying to meet this vacuum that we have. You know, FCA is trying to, where are these boys going to get Jesus? Where are they going to get them? People don't take them to church anymore. And when I say people don't, I don't know your community. You may have it solved, and I hope you have. You know what? But most places I go to all over the country, the kids not getting to church. I speak to churches a whole lot, and I look out there and all I see is gray hair. Where are the kids? Where are the young boys, the young girls, you know? And I know a lot of times I'd make a talk like this, and some lady would say to me, well, I wish I could get my boy to go to church. You know, you don't have a daddy, but I wish he'd, I talked to him. I said, son, please go to church. Oh, get up and go to church. But he won't go. Make him. Make him. You make your son go to school, don't you? Now you're looking at a guy that wouldn't have gone to school if my mom hadn't made me. I ain't one of them guys that sit up and tell you how much I like school. You know, now I ended up with a master's degree and an honorary doctorate degree and all that stuff. But I wasn't all that excited about going to school, you know. But my folks made me go, and I sure am glad, you know. And also my folks made me go to church. I didn't want to go there either. I'd a lot rather stay at home, you know what? They made me go. And so when I raised my boys and girls, I tried to do the same thing, you know. And they are very much the same way with their families now. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, here in America, where we've just tried to kick God out of everything. We've kicked God out of our schools. We've kicked God out of our public places. In God we trust, we're halfway afraid to say it. You know what? And so where are these I keep saying boys now, it could be boys and girls, but I coached boys, you know. But where are they going to get it, folks? FCA is trying to alleviate that. If you had ever been to the National FCA Camp, first one I attended was 1968. Took my whole family there, and saw what the FCA does for these young men. I mentioned to you Ruhama Baptist Church, where I was raised for 30 years. On Sunday, a preacher would preach. Then when he get through preaching, we'd have a song of invitation. And y'all do that? Or something like that? We're going to sing a song of invitation. Yes, we shall gather at the river. Verse 1, 2, and 4. You know, I don't know what happened to 3, but they never sing 3. 1, 2, and 4, you know. And when we have this song, if anybody would like to join the church or come down and accept Christ, just come on down and we'll welcome you, you know. Every Sunday was that. And a lot of times after the preacher preached, they sang the hymn of invitation. Sure enough, somebody would come down the aisle. Somebody would come down the aisle, you know, maybe some young boy or some young girl, or maybe a man and his wife, you know. And it'd be a great for the church there. So got a new member, you know, got somebody else that's saved. Then every now and then you might have about 7 of them come down. Woo! What a service that was, you know. 7 of them came down and joined. Ooh, wasn't that good, you know, man. And but that's the environment I was raised in, you know. Well, I ended up the head football coach at West Virginia University. And when I was at West Virginia University, I went to my first statewide national camp. I guess you have statewide here, don't you? You have a statewide thing here? Well, we had one in West Virginia, had it at Jackson's Mill. That's Stonewall Jackson's, when he was a child, lived there. And so we'd go to this camp down at Jackson's Mill. It had a place, a cafeteria, where you could feed 100-something people, I guess. It had dormitories where you could probably house 300 people. It had a basketball court, had a swimming pool, had a softball area and the football area, you know. And it was just for high school and junior high boys. So they'd come in there, they'd come in on the Monday and go home on Saturday. And so that my first camp, there were about 250 boys there, you know. Now, the girls had to camp somewhere else. They didn't have one with us, you know. So we had about 250 boys there. Well, they come in, then you divide them up into teams, and they play again. They play basketball against each other, football against each other, softball against each other, swimming against each other, running against each other, things like that. And then in between games, they sit them under a tree and have coaches like myself or high school coaches, probably even better, would get these boys and have a devotion. Then they'd have prayer with them. They'd read the scripture with them, you see. They'd do that now for 5 days. Most of those boys have never had that. And that's the way our culture is today. Maybe not in your situation, but in most of the situations I go into, you know what? And, but anyway, so at that camp, we stay up there, we brought in all Americans to speak to them, to give testimonies. I mean to talk about Jesus, not football, you know what? And then we'd bring in coaches. We'd bring in high school coaches. We'd bring in college coaches. So picture us doing that for 5 days, and on the last night, I'm the speaker. Not that that's so big deal. We had other speakers too, but this is my time. And I give them a talk. You know, I give them my little devotion. Then I get through, and then the guy that's running the thing, he gets up there and says, boys, we're going home tomorrow. We're fixing to turn the lights out. And if any of y'all would like to come up and accept Christ or just ask for forgiveness or whatever, if any of you would like to do that, we're going to turn the lights out, and you'd be glad for you to come up here to the front, you know. Well, they had a big white cross on the wall back there, you know, but everything else was dark. Everything else was black, you know. And so they turned those lights off. And you could hear a little bit shuffling around. You could hear some activity going on, you know. And they must have kept those lights out about 15 minutes. When they turned those lights on, every boy in that room was up there in front on his knees. Did that mean they were all saved? Did that mean they all joined the church? I don't know. I don't know them personally. But that ain't bad, is it? Remember, we had 7 back at Ruhama. We had 7. We only had 250 here, you know. Surely some of them were saved. Well, really, once they did that, we'd have ministers take them in the back room, try to explain to them exactly what it was about, see. But you see what I'm talking about? You see the influence. I wanted my children involved in that. I wanted my children involved in that. I'd want other children. I want my grandchildren involved in it, my great-grandchildren involved in it, because I see what I can do. We've had an FCA chapter at Florida State, and most of the, I don't know if most of the schools do, but nearly most of them have FCA down there, you know, and it has affected more kids than anything. I wish our church could get them in there, you know what? But here's the thing about FCA. If FCA can get them turned around and get them committed, then they maybe go to church, you know. Maybe we get them at church. Is the FCA stronger than the church? Heck no. Nothing's stronger than the church. Nothing is more meaningful than the church. That's Jesus himself. You know, Jesus said, I'm the church, you know. But see how FCA can help. And I'm concerned about our nation. I'm concerned about our nation. It scares me what I read. Like I say, we've kicked God out of everything. You know what? Now they're trying to erase all of our "in God we trust" stuff, you know. And I guarantee I'll fight for that as long as I can fight, you know what? And I think most Americans will. But we got to get on. We got to stay on our toes, you know. So so when I go out talking to FCA, it's trying to just hear from me how I hope that you will support the fellowship of Christian athletes in your community. If you do, you can't believe how much it'll help the community, you know, because you'll have boys saved. I guarantee you they'll be saved. Mom and Daddy ain't taking them. You take them, you know. And I've seen it happen. I've had so many boys at Florida State change their life. You know, it's funny. I coached 57 years. I get letters all the time. Boy, I coached 40 years ago. The boy I coached 50 years ago. Boy, I coached 10 years ago. You know, none of them mention football. I have never gotten a letter where a kid says, "Oh, Coach, you remember back when?" Remember when we played for the national championship? Remember when I made that big run? Remember when you did it? No, they don't mention that. They thank me for the things that I taught them and for leading them into the fellowship of Christian athletes. I now am married. I've got children going to college where they all have been saved and this and that. You know what? And that's probably the greatest letter I can get. But that's what's important in life. That's the priority that's important in life. I can sit and talk to you all day how God has blessed me. You know, when I talk to y'all, I can't tell you much. I can only tell you what I see. I can only tell you what the events I'm involved in. And I can tell you what things happen to me, you know. And I feel like that's what God has given me an opportunity to do. But I accepted Christ when I was about 11 years old. Was baptized in a Baptist church. Do you know I didn't know what I was doing? I was 23 before I really found out what I was doing. I was 23 years of age before I finally found out I was saved by what? Grace. Bobby, there ain't a thing you can do to be saved. It's already been done. Jesus died for your sins. You know what? And all I got to do is accept it, man. There's nothing I can do, you know. I learned that when I was 23, you know. And I made a pledge to God. I was sick back in that, and when I was 13 and couldn't go to school, and but I had pledged God if He would heal me and let me play ball, because the doctor told me you ain't gonna play no more ball ever, you know. And God, if you'll let me get well, I'll do my best to serve you. And then when I'm 23, when I was saved, I said, God, if you'll, you know, I'll try to serve you through football if you'll lead me. You see. Now let me tell you how He led me. This I want to say this is a true story, but you think the rest I said was lying. But this is a true story too, okay? I graduated from college. I remember the day I finished my last game. And after the game, the athletic director came up to me and said, Bobby, if you'll go get your master's degree, we'll hire you back here as assistant football coach. Whoo! I got a job, man. I got me a job, you know. So, boy, I go get my master's degree, and they hired me back there. The thing I remember most about it, $3,600 a year. That's the bad news. And I had 2 kids at that time. But anyway, so they hired me, and I didn't even apply for it, you know. I coached there 2 years, and I got a call from South Georgia College, the president. We're looking for a football coach and athletic director. Would you be interested in coming down here? And I never heard of him. I don't know how he knew. I don't know how he got my name. I know now, but I didn't know then. Yeah, I'd be interested. He said, head job? Yeah, I'd be interested in a head job. So me and my wife, we drive down to Douglas, Georgia. It's about 300 miles away, I think, and get interviewed. And the president says, I'm going to interview another guy next week, and I'll call you. Next week, he called. Maybe they don't want to hear it. They might have cut it off at the switch back there. But so anyway, I get interviewed. I got the head football, athletic director, and head basketball coach. Can't you imagine basketball? I ain't never played basketball in my life, you know. But I coached basketball, and I didn't think I did that bad myself. We were, 11-11 first year. I didn't think it was bad. Is it on? Or do you want to speak?
No.
Is it on? I think it's on. Okay. So, but I didn't think 11. I didn't think 11-11 was that bad. First year, we lost 11 on the road and lost 11 home. But well, I was the AD, so I fired me as basketball coach. Went and hired another guy. But anyway, so true story now. I'm not lying. So I coached there 4 years. We won 3 state championships. Back in those days, they had football in junior college football in Georgia. I don't know if y'all knew it or not. Scholarships and but then so anyway, the president comes to see me after the 4th year. Bobby, we're going to drop football. We can't afford it. Everybody's losing money, and they were, And people had to go see Georgia and Georgia Tech instead of little South Georgia College. So all of them were losing money. So he said, you can stay here as athletic director, but football, no more football. Folks, it wasn't 2 weeks later. I cannot remember when. It might have been the next day. I go to my office, and there's a letter on my desk from Samford University. We're looking for a head football coach. Would you be interested? Well, that's my alma mater. And it said, we're going to start giving scholarships. So, golly, so I'll go up and get interviewed and get the job. Now, here's the thing about it. That's 3 jobs I got. I did not apply for one of them. They called me, and I got the job. I was there for 4 years. We went to 2 bowls, had the best records they've ever had there. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying how God led it. And after 4 years there, I was invited to the Atlanta Quarterback Club. This is where I think God played a hand. I'm just trying to give you all a testimony of what happened to me. So I'm coaching small college, Samford University. Used to be Howard College. Now it's Samford University. And so over in Atlanta, every year they have the quarterback club meet every week, and at the end of the year have their big banquet. So when they have their big banquet in January, they invite the head coaches at all the big schools in the South. I remember Bear Bryant was there from Alabama, Shug Jordan was there from Auburn, Wally Butts was there from Georgia, Bobby Bowden was there from Georgia Tech, Paul Diesel was there from LSU, and Frank Howard, and y'all remember those clowns, Frank Howard and P.Ed Walker, and the other guys, probably the guys at North Carolina and Clemson, those schools. And so just the big name coaches. I got invited. Howard College ain't no big college. We had 2,000 students. I got invited. So I go over there, man. I'm up there with all those big name coaches, And how come I got invited? Because the president of that organization was from Howard College. And he wanted his co-chair. So, Bobby, we're going to invite you to go up here, sit up there with Bear Bryant and all those guys. So I'm sitting up here at the main table, boy, And so it's about 16 or 17 head coach. Guess who they set me next to? You would never guess. A guy named Bill Peterson. Peterson was the head coach at Florida State. I ain't heard of them either. No, I'd heard them a little bit, but they hadn't done much, And he and I got to talking, and he said, "I'm looking for a coach." I had a coach just leave, went to Alabama. Would you be interested in coming to Florida State? Well, my wife and I had figured I'd need to get to a major college if I'm ever going to make it, because they're not hiring anybody out of small colleges. So Ann and I go down and get interviewed, and I get the job. But again, it's another job I got. I didn't apply for it. They asked me. I interviewed and got it. Coached there 3 years. We had 1 year. We had a great year. But Ann, you ever had a job you didn't feel good at? You feel like you're just marking time. That's the way we felt then as an assistant coach. Nothing's happening. We're going to get lost in the shuffle, So we felt like we ought to leave. Well, I had 2 jobs offered, one at Auburn and one at West Virginia University as assistant coach, offensive coordinator. Well, Ann and I decided we'd go to West Virginia. We'll learn how to recruit Ohio. We'll learn how to recruit Pennsylvania. We'll learn how to recruit Virginia. Where these good football players are, So we take that job. We go up there. First 4 years, I'm an assistant coach. After the 4th year, we play in the Peach Bowl down there. We beat South Carolina in the Peach Bowl. And after the game, the president, Jim Carlin, calls all of our coaches in, all of us coaches. Says, "I'm leaving. I'm going to Texas Tech, take a job. Any of y'all want to come with me? Come with me. But I'm leaving." All right, now look, here I am, an assistant coach at West Virginia. The head job just came open. Do I want it? You dang right I want it. Yeah, I want it. All right, so what should I do? Well, I should run see the president and tell him. I should run to the AD and tell him. I should run to the committee and say, "Hey, look, I'd love to have that job. I can handle it." That's what I should do. But my daddy was dying over in Birmingham. So Ann and I packed up with all those kids and took off from Birmingham to visit my daddy, who did die. But I got to see him before he did, you know. So I done missed out on an opportunity. Except the next morning, they called me, the athletic director called me, Coach Bowden, we met last night, and we want you to be the head football coach at Florida State. See, so naturally I accepted it. But the thing about it is, it's 5 jobs I never applied for I got, you know. I have to feel like God did that. Y'all think what you want to. I really don't care what you think. You really, I know what I think. I know what I think, you know what? And so I go to Florida State. No, I go to I get the head job at West Virginia, head coach 6 years. Then they call me about Florida State. Well, Ann and I got 4 kids going to West Virginia. You know, we don't want to leave our kids. And but we kind of miss the South too. You know, I'm a Southerner. You know, so we waited till the last second to accept the Florida State job. If Florida State was getting whipped every Saturday, man, we'd at least go to some bowls. And so anyway, Ann and I at the last minute decided we'd go to Florida State. So this next job I got, I didn't apply for it now. They called me, you know. But I say that, you're not to try to brag. You know I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to tell you how God led me, and God will lead you if you'll let Him. If you'll stop and listen. I think the biggest thing we Christians don't do well enough is listen. You know what? We try to tell God what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Instead of listening to Him and going where He says go, He'll take care of it. And He was sure good to me. And in the success we had at Florida State, He made it possible. You know, He made it possible. Well, I can talk on and on until I'm about to fall asleep. But listen, again, I hope you'll consider supporting the FCA financially. You know, you think a lot of times that whatever profession you're in or whatever job you're in, you know, there's nothing I can do. I can't go out and talk and do this, that. Well, there is something you can do. You can contribute money to these guys that will do something. These FCA guys, this is their life, you know. Contribute to them. Let them go do it for you, you know. I'm sure that'll play a big role in God's thinking, you know, as you try to make the team. You know, one thing about salvation, you can't earn it. We can't earn it. It's free, you know. But you have to accept it. You have to believe. You have to trust. You have to have faith, you know. I ain't got much, but I have got that. Good to see all y'all.